Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yes.
Excellent. Are you filming Loki 2 now in Atlanta?
No, we're about to start in about a month or so.
Okay. All right. So a little
So
bit out.
we're in deep prep. We're
Nice.
sharpening our pencils and getting our stationery in order in order. I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah,
Excellent.
we're getting ready. We're getting ready to go. We've got things definitely, we've got big things to do. Yeah.
Obviously, you've got a lot of mess to clean up after the end of the original
Yes.
Loki series.
Yes. Good. We have some,
So,
we have some questions to answer, or to try
yes,
to answer at least. Yeah.
absolutely. So, what is it that keeps you coming back to Loki so many times?
The character seems to contain so much breadth and so much depth and so much range and so many surprises, and I've enjoyed it every time. Um, that's the truth of it, really. I think it's because um, the cocktail of his contradictory characteristics is thrilling. Um, of his external charm and playfulness and wit, which is that's his exterior, and on the inside, his internal world is full of vulnerability and poignancy and raw emotion. And Yeah, he's a wonderful character to play, and the series particularly, I felt completely new and original, and the kind of things we were trying to do felt like a really fresh take on the character and the things that make the character interesting.
So, when you were prepping for the series and you started to hear about some of the things that we're going to tackle, were there specific beats or moments that you wanted to explore or characteristics that you wanted to explore within Loki, or were you just totally open to whatever Michael and team were serving up?
I was really drawn to the idea of order versus chaos was, I thought, brilliant as a starting place for drama. Loki representing chaos as the god of mischief, the TVA representing order as this bureaucratic institution that claims to govern the order of reality, and that um, reality unfolds according to predetermined sequences by the TVA. I thought that's a place to start. Uh, but the most exciting aspect of it for me was stripping Loki of everything that was familiar.
Yes.
Um, his his brother, his father, his home, um, literally his clothing, his status, his magical power, and by taking everything away, challenging the character to reveal what remains.
Hmm.
And that is a emotional and psychological confrontation which would which would open up the character, break the character open. That's what I wanted to do, was break Loki open. um, Loki, through the MCU and also in the ancient stories, has always been a boundary crosser, a mercurial transgressor, the shapeshifter, and someone who's so expert at changing shape. I wanted Loki to be challenged with the question, who are you really? And for that to be a very confronting, difficult, emotional, psychological confrontation, which would allow, I think, for um, a new path afterwards, a new kind of curiosity. Um, and so when I read the first episode, and in the shape of Mobius is a kind of there's a very intense interrogation in which Loki's confronted with his past mistakes, the patterns of behavior which have been destructive to other people and to himself. And then he watches the events of his life play out: his mother's death, his father's death, reconciliation with his brother, and his own death. And it's incredibly unusual. And it was the fact that it was so unusual. I thought, if you took any character from any story and you showed them watching their future and the end of their life, it would be uniquely destabilizing. But the fact that it's Loki was just thrilling. And you've got this character who is so clever and claims to be in control all the time, or is good at manipulating situations to his own advantage. And here he's broken completely open into a place of raw vulnerability, which renders his glorious purpose utterly meaningless, and the character's challenged to find some new motivation, some new curiosity. So those were the things that were really exciting.
The scene that you're describing, where he's reviewing the events of the life that the Loki that has died has
Mm.
experienced, it's a beautiful scene, because I think as an actor you have to regard that scene without any of the preconceived experience that you'd had since
Yeah,
Avengers, right? Loki has
yeah,
changed quite a bit since the original Avengers, but you are playing the character that literally stepped out of the Avengers.
that's
Was
right.
it a challenge in that moment as an actor to kind of reset your mind 10 years back and then go back to that original interpretation?
It was really interesting. Kate Herron was so helpful. She was always reminding me to sort of, in a way, of, because in the first Avengers movie, I understood that I was playing the primary antagonist, and in the structure of the drama, in order for the Avengers to assemble, the antagonist has to have some sort of malevolence. You know, the bad guy's got to lose in that movie,
Right.
and so I really understood that when I was making Avengers, that Loki as an antagonist had to have a kind of he had to represent a threat. And as he enters this series, he's playing those tunes. He's playing the same old tunes. He's trying to intimidate Mobius. He's trying to threaten Mobius. He's trying to claim his superiority all the time. And then it was an amazing opportunity to play that scene where he's watching the events of his life play out, because it was so surreal. Because in the first instance, in reality, I was sitting on a chair and looking at a grey wall.
Right.
I wasn't watching any footage or anything. I was just looking at a wall, and when they filmed the reverse angle, the VFX put the footage in post-production. But also just remembering the scenes in my own mind, because as a human being, as an actor, I, Tom, was there. I had lived out the memories, if you like, that this Loki had never seen before. And so I was responding to events in my imagination that I had actually played. So it's a very strange, surreal scenario, and a really rewarding experience as a performer. I've never really played a scene like that before. And it allowed me, I think, to go to some quite unusual places emotionally.
Sure.
The character watching his own death it's gonna be destabilizing in a unique way.
So there are two relationships over the course of Loki. I mean, many things change Loki's character over the course of the series, but there are two key relationships, one of which is with Mobius
Mm.
and Owen Wilson. Talk to me about forming that chemistry that you guys have together over the course of the series.
Owen Wilson was terrific. He was so committed. He was so prepared. He was so engaged with the whole idea. He understood what we were doing. He understood the TVA. Michael Waldron and Kate Herron had really introduced the idea brilliantly in a kind of. They talked a little bit about this Kafkaesque, nightmarish bureaucracy, or a kind of Orwellian scenario of this institution that had claimed to have a big responsibility, and so that had a kind of it created a noirish atmosphere. And Kasra Farahani, our production designer, had created these brutalist sets and full of mid-century modern architecture. And Owen completely understood where he was. I think Michael at one point had pitched the TVA as Blade Runner meets Mad Men. And Mobius in that is a highly intelligent detective, an analyst, an analyst for the TVA who's almost got an academic curiosity about Loki. And the best, I mean, it was a completely instinctive choice that Owen made, which was that Loki's tricks don't work on Mobius.
Right.
He doesn't get emotionally entangled in Loki's threats or intimidation or mischief. He's almost like a scholar who's been studying an animal in the wild and is delighted to finally get one up close. And it's destabilizing for Loki because he's so used to it, all his manipulations working. But he's met his match, and there's something of the maverick intellect about Mobius, which probably is true of Loki too. And so they form this odd couple. And I think Loki's drawn to Mobius because he's able to. Mobius views Loki with a dispassionate detachment. He's almost he always says like Mobius respects Loki. He says, "I get it. I get why you are who you are. You don't have to. We don't have to bring shame into the equation. You don't have to be ashamed. I understand." And I don't think anyone has ever said that to Loki. But yeah, Owen is innately very witty and very warm and very playful, and it was a pleasure to play those long dialogue scenes because a part of the wit and the warmth comes from the fact that they disagree about things, or they disagree about how to do things, but there's a sort of growing admiration and companionship and fellowship. It was really, really enjoyable. I loved working with Owen on this.
Excellent. So the second relationship is obviously with Sylvie, the other variant.
Yeah.
What advice did you give Sophia DiMartino to play a version of Loki, or was it all on her own creation?
I wanted her to have more than enough space to create the character for herself, but I said, look, the door is always open if you have any questions, and she did. But what we really enjoyed was if any of us were to meet another version of ourselves, it would inspire so much curiosity.
Right.
It sort of, do you like bananas as well? Like, what's your favorite music? You sort of you'd want to know, like, what happened to you in that thing that happened to me when I was 7? Did it happen to you as well? And we kept talking about those kinds of their mutual curiosity in a way, and the qualities which they shared, and the qualities which they didn't share and were completely different. And so it was really fun to create this oppositional dynamic, almost like it's almost like long lost siblings or something, but there's also an odd couple screwball atmosphere too. And I loved what Sophia did. Sylvie is a character in her own right, and she built her from the ground up. Someone who did not grow up in the palace of Asgard, did not grow up as a prince, did not have those privileges, and she was a brawler and somebody who was sort of completely surviving on her instincts. Someone not particularly traumatized by the adoption. And I loved that. I loved that for Sylvie, the adoption is like completely fine, and it's kind of the cornerstone of all of Loki's trauma. And he just, so yeah, she was great, and they're different magical powers and different hair and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It was really fun. Both the Mobius Loki dynamic and the Sylvie Loki dynamic they were kind of central to the whole show, really.
Sure. So last question for you. Thematically, what can we expect for you to explore in season 2?
Good question, sir. I have to be very careful what I say.
Of course.
It's it is a tangle. Season 1 it finishes in a tangle, and that needs to be untangled if it can be. Um, uh, I do think, yeah, I think it's curious how they how they chase after the answers they need, each character. But it's Loki, so you could never be sure of anything. Expect the unexpected. Yeah, I so much I wish I could talk about, but there will be a time and a place for that. But
It's a perfect answer. Kevin Feige would be very proud.
okay. We're working unbelievably hard on it, though. Of course we are. Like, it has to be. It has to. We have to continue where we left off. Yeah, and keep
Of course.
surprising people.
Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to see it. It's always a pleasure and a joy to revisit your performance as Loki. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Clarence. I appreciate it.
Take care.